Scary moments in the family. This story gives me chills. Today, we delve into a chilling case that mirrors the biblical narrative of the world's first murder. According to the book of Genesis, Cain, fueled by jealousy, killed his brother Abel after God favored Abel's offering over Cain. This ancient story of envy and betrayal tragically finds echoes in our modern world, where similar familial conflicts continue to unfold. In late June 2010, the Eckerd family faced a heart-wrenching ordeal. 19-year-old Sean Eckerd vanished under mysterious circumstances. The evening before his disappearance, a heated argument between Sean and his older brother Stanley culminated in Sean storming out, leaving without his phone, a departure highly uncharacteristic of him. His family, deeply concerned, noted his absence, but it wasn't until 24 hours later that the official search began. The community rallied together with missing person flyers featuring Sean's smiling, blonde-haired image distributed across train stations, supermarkets, and street corners. Despite exhaustive efforts spanning 2 days, there was no trace of Sean. The police were baffled, their efforts to locate him fruitless, as the young man remained missing. Amidst the growing anxiety, a group of relatives, friends, and volunteers formed a search team. They tirelessly scoured local haunts, questioned passersby, and pieced together Sean's movements on the night he disappeared. Their determination painted a vivid picture of Sean's last known hours, yet yielded no substantial leads. Parallel to the community's efforts, the police began a deep dive into the Eckerd family's dynamics and history. Donna and Samuel Eckerd, Sean's parents, had a complex family structure with 6 adult children from previous marriages. Understanding the family's intricate relationships became crucial for investigators as they sought clues to Sean's sudden disappearance. This case, steeped in mystery and familial conflict, serves as a stark reminder of the enduring impact of jealousy and strife within families, echoing the ancient story of Cain and Abel. As the search continued, the question remained, could this be another tragic instance of brother turning against brother, driven by dark, age-old emotions? After facing challenges in their initial marriages, Donna and Samuel found solace and stability in each other's arms, eventually settling down in San Diego, California. They moved into a spacious family home and became regular attendees at the local church, embracing a devout and somewhat secluded lifestyle. Years after establishing their new life, the couple welcomed 2 sons into their family, Stanley and 2 years later, Sean. Donna poured her heart into homemaking and nurturing her boys. Fostering a loving and caring environment, the brothers received a good education at a nearby school and actively participated in church events every weekend. As the elder siblings matured and left the nest to start their own families across the continent, the Eckerds maintained a warm and close-knit bond. They stayed connected through frequent calls and celebrated all major family holidays together. Sean, the younger son, was known for his vibrant personality, charisma, and empathetic nature, which drew people to him effortlessly. In contrast, Stanley was more introverted and cautious, finding it harder to mingle and embrace new experiences. Despite their differences in age gap, Stanley and Sean shared a group of friends and classmates supporting and looking out for each other. They were well-behaved, excelled academically, and maintained a trusting, friendly relationship, often humorously bantering in a way that delighted their parents. Respect was a cornerstone of their upbringing. From a young age, Donna and Samuel instilled in their children the values of faith and adherence to God's laws. As the boys grew into their own, their interests began to diverge distinctly. Sean found his passion in music, playing in a band, while Stanley pursued martial arts, each carving a unique path in life. Each evening, the Eckerd family gathered around the dinner table, sharing the day's emotions and stories. Sean, ever the storyteller, often captivated the room with tales of his musical endeavors, friendships, and future aspirations. His vibrant anecdotes about rehearsals and gigs usually dominated the conversation, leaving little room for Stanley to share his own experiences, which seemed mundane in comparison. On one such evening, Sean excitedly shared a new encounter. He had met a neighbor, Mary Jane, a delicate young girl with sparkling brown eyes and flowing blonde hair. Sean was utterly enchanted by her, especially after hearing her play the piano through an open window. Drawn by the beautiful music, he impulsively entered her home, relying on his charm to navigate the awkward introduction gracefully. Despite the age difference, Sean and Mary Jane quickly struck up a warm friendship. Sean, always the social butterfly, frequently organized picnics and outings where Mary Jane was a special guest. Their time together included long walks, park visits, and stops at scenic overlooks, hinting at the beginnings of young love. However, Their budding relationship faced an abrupt pause due to unforeseen family circumstances. The Eckards were shaken by the news of a serious illness afflicting Donna's elderly mother, necessitating a major family decision. Despite the efforts to balance everyone's needs, the decision to relocate was inevitable. Reluctantly, Sean had to accept leaving behind his friends and Mary Jane as the family. In 2005, the Eckards resettled in Spring Hill, Florida, in Donna's mother's home, marking the start of a new chapter away from the place Sean had always called home. The relocation to Spring Hill proved to be a rejuvenating change for the Eckard family, especially as it brought about the much-needed recovery of Sean and Stanley's grandmother. However, the move tugged at Sean's heartstrings. Deeply missed his band, his strolls with Mary Jane, and the familiar comforts of his old city. Nevertheless, Sean's zest for life didn't allow his spirits to dampen for long, and soon he was embracing his new surroundings with the same enthusiasm as before. Donna and Samuel quickly found their places in the local Presbyterian church, immersing themselves in their roles and community. Donna tended to the children in the nursery, while Samuel assisted in the chapel, finding fulfillment in their new duties. This new environment brought the brothers closer, allowing them to forge new friendships and reintegrate into school life, almost as if they were breathing life back into their former routine. At school, Sean found a spot in the band, rekindling his passion for music, while Stanley took up martial arts at a dojo just a couple of blocks from their home. Despite these engaging activities, Sean's thoughts frequently drifted back to Mary Jane. Every evening, he'd seclude himself in his room to talk with her on the phone, their conversations ending with promises of a future reunion and plans for Sean to visit her once he obtained his parents' approval. Stanley, on the other hand, was navigating his path in a different way. Known for his quiet and reserved nature, he often felt overshadowed, lacking the overt warmth and attention that seemed so abundant for Sean. This sense of exclusion drove Stanley towards making some questionable choices in a bid for independence and self-assertion. In May 2006, Stanley shocked his parents by announcing his decision to quit school to pursue a life dedicated to martial arts and his dream of opening a dojo. His journey, however, veered off course as he fell in with the wrong crowd, dabbling in petty fraud and experimenting with illegal substances. His descent into this troubled lifestyle culminated in 2007 when he was arrested for theft and charged with felony fraud, marking a significant legal and moral setback for him. The impact of Stanley's actions struck a harsh blow to the family, particularly Donna, who was hospitalized with a heart attack upon hearing the news. This crisis underscored the deep rifts and challenges within the family, highlighting the contrasting paths the brothers had taken since their move. The dire situation surrounding Stanley was swiftly mitigated thanks to the intervention of a lawyer hired by Jennifer, Sean's sister. The lawyer adeptly navigated the legal proceedings, highlighting the absence of concrete evidence against Stanley. This defense resulted in Stanley receiving a suspended sentence and his immediate release. The ordeal left Stanley deeply shaken, prompting him to retreat into himself, burdened by guilt and longing for his family's understanding and acceptance. Meanwhile, Sean, deeply affected by his brother's troubles, chose not to burden his parents with his own plans. During his summer break, he worked as a waiter, quietly saving every penny. Without revealing his intentions, he left a note for his mother and set off for California, determined to marry Mary Jane. The lengthy bus journey spanned 2 days, during which Sean's anticipation grew with each passing mile, his thoughts fixed on the reunion with Mary Jane. Upon arriving at the final stop, Sean's excitement peaked as he spotted Mary Jane through the bus window, recognizing her joyful smile and the familiar gesture of her tucking hair behind her ears. The couple relived the joys of their past, sharing picnics and cherished moments reminiscent of their high school days. During one of these outings, Sean declared his love for Mary, which she warmly reciprocated. However, their happiness was abruptly interrupted when Sean suddenly felt faint and collapsed, losing consciousness. Sean was rushed to the hospital, where his condition rapidly deteriorated. Mary Jane, alarmed and desperate, contacted his sister Jennifer, who immediately flew to California. The doctors diagnosed Sean with tick-borne encephalitis, a severe illness that had swiftly progressed, causing complications, including brain inflammation. The battle for Sean's health was grueling. After enduring a month in a coma, followed by 6 months of intensive rehabilitation, Sean slowly made his way back to health. The road to recovery was arduous. What had started as a simple tick bite during a summer outing had escalated into a life-threatening ordeal, underscoring the fragility of life and the unexpected challenges that can abruptly alter its course. Jennifer brought her brother Sean back to Florida for his rehabilitation, facing a prolonged period of therapy and recovery. Meanwhile, Mary Jane was left behind, once again relegated to maintaining their relationship through phone call. This series of misfortunes and health scares drew the Eckerd family closer together, with Donna dedicating herself entirely to aiding Sean's recovery. She meticulously managed his diet and exercise regimen, which eventually led to his full recovery, but also unwittingly sowed seeds of resentment and jealousy in Stanley, who felt increasingly overlooked. With time and Donna's unwavering care, Sean gradually regained his strength and resumed his musical studies. By 2009, he had completed his education and was eager to reunite with Mary Jane, planning to bring her back to introduce her to his parents as the love of his life. However, fate had other plans. Stanley introduced Sean to Samantha Rowe, a Florida native who quickly meshed well with both brothers. Stanley found himself enamored with Samantha, but it was Sean's charismatic and outgoing personality that truly impressed her. For a while, Stanley pursued Samantha with all the romance he could muster, culminating in a few dates that ended with a passionate kiss, leaving Stanley elated. Despite Stanley's feelings, Samantha harbored a growing fascination with Sean. In a bold move, she sent Sean a message confessing her feelings and suggesting a casual stroll through the city. Sean, loyal to Mary Jane, agreed to the walk, not to court Samantha, but simply to talk. They spent the evening discussing his brother Stanley and his distant love, Mary Jane, making it clear that his heart belonged to someone else. Feeling rejected, Samantha sent a message to Stanley, misleadingly claiming that Sean had expressed a strong interest in her as well. This revelation ignited a furious reaction from Stanley. That evening, a heated argument ensued between the brothers in Sean's room. What began as a calm discussion quickly escalated into shouting, which wasn't unusual for them, causing their parents to think little of the noise at the time. The following morning, it was their mother who first noticed Sean's absence. He hadn't responded to her calls, which was unusual. Remembering the tensions from the night before, she questioned Stanley, who claimed that Sean had left the house after their argument. As worry mounted, the family's fear was compounded 2 days later by a harrowing phone call to the police made by Sean's sister, Jennifer. The dispatcher picked up to nothing but Jennifer's scream echoing through the line, signaling that something was terribly wrong. Amid the chaos of Jennifer's desperate call, a male moan pierced the background noise. It took several attempts by the dispatcher to soothe her enough to clearly record her plea for help. Amidst her continued screams, Jennifer chillingly reported, "Oh, damn it, my brother Stanley killed Sean. He's in the house talking to his mother. His father is freaking lying over his dead son, who's been buried in the ground since early Saturday morning. Damn it, I'm begging for help." When police officers arrived at the tragic scene, they were met with a gut-wrenching sight. In the backyard, Samuel was found on his knees, hands covered in dirt, desperately trying to unearth his son's body. The serene neighborhood, once known for its manicured lawns and friendly waves, was now the backdrop for a grim discovery. Samuel, distraught and screaming, attempted to clean the dirt off Sean's lifeless body. The once close-knit Eckerd family was irreversibly shattered, left to grapple with the dual horrors of unearthing one son from the ground and witnessing the other being led away in handcuffs. Stanley Eckerd was promptly detained on suspicion of premeditated murder. During his initial interrogation, Stanley claimed the killing was unintentional, a result of a momentary burst of anger during which he struck Sean on the head. Upon realizing Sean was dead, Stanley panicked, tying up the body and discreetly moving it through a window to bury it behind their house. His matter-of-fact admission at the inquest, "I buried him. After all, that's what you do with dead people," resonated with a chilling detachment. Stanley's defense was that he had acted out of a misguided attempt to protect his mother from the shock of Sean's death. He even planned to move Sean's body later, hoping to spare his parents the immediate pain. Throughout the interrogation, Stanley's demeanor oscillated dramatically, tearful and remorseful one moment, bitter and accusatory the next. He harshly criticized Sean, blaming him for his life's misfortunes and claiming victory in a perceived competition for their mother's and Samantha's affections. Stanley was charged with second-degree murder and taken into custody. 2 days following his arrest, Dr. Barbara Wolf conducted an autopsy on Sean's body, revealing bruising under the skin of the neck and rope marks, consistent with compression that would have made breathing difficult. These findings were presented in court, adding a forensic dimension to the tragic narrative. The medical examination confirmed that Sean's death was caused by a combination of a severe head injury and asphyxiation. The case was rigorously pursued by Assistant State Attorney Pete Magrino. The first hearing, overseen by District Judge Stephen Rushing, took place on February 25, 2011. During this somber event, Stanley's parents, Donna and Samuel Eckerd, were present in the second row, visibly distressed as they observed their eldest son being escorted into the courtroom. The trial officially began on April 9, 2013, at Hernando Court under the authority of District Judge Anthony Taddy. The defense was spearheaded by attorney Alan Hunter, with prosecutor Pete continuing his role on behalf of the state. The prosecution's strategy was to establish that Stanley had meticulously orchestrated the crime. In contrast, the defense argued that the incident was the result of a spontaneous altercation that tragically escalated, and attorney Allen urged the jury to consider Stanley's purported good intentions behind his attempts to conceal the crime. Stanley Eckerd faced charges of first-degree premeditated murder, with a mandatory life sentence looming if convicted. The trial, extending over 5 days, culminated on May 13th with the sentencing. Despite the gravity of the charges, Stanley had earlier declined a plea deal that would have capped his sentence at 20 years for pleading guilty to second-degree murder, choosing instead to face trial. During the verdict reading, an emotional scene unfolded in the courtroom as Stanley remained impassive, while his parents, Samuel and Donna, were overcome with grief. The aftermath of the jury's decision was heart-wrenching. Samuel's grief erupted into loud cries, surrounded by family members consoling him and Donna. After about 2.5 hours of deliberation, the jury, comprised of 9 women and 3 men, convicted Stanley of second-degree murder. They concluded that while he had not planned to kill his younger brother, he was not entirely innocent. The Eckerd family stood by Stanley, believing in his version of events from that fateful morning of June 19, 2010. They expressed dissatisfaction with both the prosecution's decision to press charges and the swift guilty verdict. Following the trial, Samuel praised the efforts of Chief Assistant Public Defender Alan Lanter and voiced his perplexity over the jury's rapid decision, signaling the family's intent to challenge the outcome. However, their appeal was ultimately rejected, leaving them grappling with the harsh reality of the judicial system's ruling. Samuel Eckerd remained steadfast in his faith despite the turmoil surrounding his family, asserting that his belief in his son's innocence was unshaken. A crucial and undisputed fact presented during the trial was that after Sean's death, Stanley removed his brother's body from the bedroom window and buried it in a shallow grave in their Spring Hill backyard. Samuel discovered Sean's body 2 days later, a grim discovery that set the stage for the subsequent legal proceedings. Assistant State Attorney Pete Magrino began his closing arguments by presenting the jury with poignant images of Sean's dirt-covered body curled in a fetal position within the grave. Magrino emphasized the reality of the situation, declaring, "This is not a detective novel case." He highlighted the inconsistencies in Stanley's account, noting that on the day Sean's body was discovered, Stanley had altered his statement up to 6 times, initially claiming ignorance about his brother's demise. Further complicating Stanley's defense, Magrino pointed out that Stanley had used Sean's cell phone to send messages to family members in the days following the funeral. He deceived them by suggesting Sean had traveled to California to be with his girlfriend, Mary Jane. Additionally, Stanley manipulated communications with Samantha, discouraging her from contacting Sean and suggesting she focus her attention on him instead. During intensive questioning, Stanley eventually confessed that Sean's death occurred during a physical altercation in their bedroom. He described hearing a snap in Sean's neck as they fell to the floor. Stanley claimed he concealed the body to protect his mother, Donna, from the shock due to her fragile health and planned to inform his father after Donna had departed on a planned trip. Magrino argued that the nature of the injuries inflicted by Stanley clearly constituted murder. He drew the jury's attention to testimonies and Stanley's own statements to detectives, which depicted escalating tensions over Samantha Rowe. Additionally, he referenced a conversation wherein Stanley ominously discussed how he would execute a hypothetical murder by striking someone on the back of the head and burying the body in the yard. In defense, attorney Alan Lanter challenged the prosecution's narrative, arguing that the evidence was circumstantial and failed to conclusively prove intent. He posited that a crime must involve a deliberate act aimed at achieving a specific result, which he claimed was not evident in this case. Lanter suggested that while Stanley was implicated in his brother's death, it was not a calculated murder. Lanter supported his argument by citing a forensic pathologist's testimony, which noted that the fatal blow to the head, when considered alongside Sean's elevated blood alcohol level and potential residual brain swelling from his recent bout of encephalitis, could have been the critical factors leading to his untimely death. This complex blend of circumstances, Lanter contended, pointed to a tragic accident rather than premeditated murder. During the trial, the pathologist introduced another significant piece of evidence, testifying that Sean's fatal injury could have been caused by his head striking the bedroom nightstand as the brothers fell. This possibility further complicated the narrative of the events that transpired that tragic night. In her testimony, Donna Eckerd recounted Sean's severe mood swings following his battle with encephalitis, describing these changes as drastic and unpredictable. At one point, she emphatically labeled her son's death as an accident, which could have influenced the jury's perception of the incident. The jury had the option to convict Stanley Eckerd of third-degree murder or manslaughter, acknowledging that while the death was unintended, it was due to reckless actions. Attorney Lanter urged the jury to consider the case as a pardonable homicide, emphasizing that the ghastly photos of Sean's buried body should not overshadow the actual circumstances that led to his death. He argued passionately that while Stanley's decision to bury his brother was a terrible act, it did not make him a murderer. During the final sentencing, the atmosphere in the courtroom was charged with tension and grief. Judge Anthony Tati sentenced Stanley Eckerd to 50 years in prison without the possibility of parole, a decision that devastated his parents. For Donna and Samuel Eckerd, the sentencing felt like losing both sons simultaneously, one to death and the other to a lifetime behind bars. This modern-day tragedy, resonating with the ancient biblical narrative of Cain and Abel, highlighted the profound consequences of familial conflict and jealousy. In the story of Cain, he was exiled as punishment for his fratricide, living with the burden of his guilt. Similarly, Stanley's actions, though not premeditated murder in the classical sense, resulted in a severe penalty reflecting society's insistence on accountability and the complex layers of human emotion and regret. Closing this segment, the presenter, Jack, wraps up the episode with a somber note on the gravity of the story just told. He invites the audience to reflect on the severe outcomes of unchecked emotions and impulsive decisions. He then encourages viewers to subscribe to the channel, promising more gripping tales in future episodes. This call to action serves as a reminder of the ongoing human fascination with the darker aspects of life and the lessons they teach us.